Hi, everyone. We're going to wait for 1 minute to allow more people to join. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Suhaib. I work for UNICEF Lao Country Office based in Vientiane. We are very excited to walk you through an exciting project that we have been implementing for the past year and so. I'm here with my colleagues who you will get to know and meet shortly. Just before we start, would like to make a couple of notes. If you have any question, please feel free to use the chat box. And also, we will have you will have the opportunity to have we will have an opportunity later towards the end of the presentation about the Q&As. So you can hold into that, or you can just drop your question into the chat box, and we will make sure to address them timely. We are here besides UNICEF, our partner for Ministry of Education and Sport, Lao PDR, and Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment, and our business partner, Air Gradient. And here is the team that we are going to walk you through this project. Mr. Sitidat Ole, Acting Director of Environment Lab at the Natural Resources and Environmental Research Institute at the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment in Laos. Mrs. Povan, Head of Division, Ministry of Education and Sport in Laos. Myself, Suhaib, I'm a Technology Officer based in Laos. Mr. Akim, the founder and CEO of Air Gradient, and our data scientist team, Hugo and Anthony, which are part of the UNICEF East Asian Pacific region at Bangkok. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our first speaker, Mr. Anthony. Anthony, over to you.
Thanks, mate. Hi, everyone. Lovely to meet you. My name's Anthony. I'm a data scientist based in the Frontier Data Lab in UNICEF's Bangkok, Thailand office. So today you're going to hear from a couple of people. First, about where we see these global challenges as lying, and then a little bit about some work that our colleagues in the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment in Laos have been doing in order to improve our understanding of air quality. Then later you'll hear from my colleague Hugo around a very exciting machine learning artificial intelligence model that we've been building in order to try and estimate air quality down to the village or even sub-village level, even in areas where we don't have sensors. And I prepared a short overview. Oh, by the way, people let me know if my slides are following along with the talk. I prepared a short overview of, if you only remember these 7 things, these are the 7 things I'd love you to leave with at the end of today. So the first one is to convince you that air quality is a real global health challenge for children. The second, that we need better data in order to make better decisions, not just us, the people on this call, but our government partners and civil society in general. We're going to talk a little bit today about a couple of different types of air quality sensors, reference sensors, low-cost sensors, and finally about AI. But we wanted to emphasize too about these reference sensors, which are highly accurate, but often cost prohibitive, especially from many of the countries where UNICEF work. Hugo's going to talk a little bit about how AI models can provide similar accuracy to these very expensive reference sensors at potentially a fraction of the cost, and also the ways in which they might be able to obviate or even at some point replace the need to deploy particularly dense sensor networks of these reference-grade air quality sensors. We're going to do a little bit of a review of alternatives to AI models, including some commercial AI options that, in our view, don't meet the needs of our partners in low and middle income countries. And finally, we're going to look at how, using our project in Laos as the best example, how adding low-cost sensors to an AI model can actually provide not only useful validation of those AI models, but can also substantially improve the accuracy of them as well. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is air quality as a global health challenge. For those of you who are attending the wider STI forum, you're probably going to hear a lot of pitches over the next couple of days around various global challenges that we could be tackling. And I wanted to stress why we've chosen air quality to focus on. Right now, across the world today, 93% of the world's children breathe air that is unsafe. And that's resulting in at least 2,000 daily deaths in children under 5 from air pollution-related causes. And 100 of those deaths are happening every day right here in Southeast Asia. So when we think about the wider climate landscape, air pollution playing a major role not only in climate change, but also very practically in children's health is one of the reasons we think it's an important thing to focus on. So these are preventable deaths, and there are steps that we and government partners can take in order to improve the state of air quality. But it's hard to know where to start, or even if our interventions are working, if we can't quantify and monitor those changes in air quality. So in most of the developed world, this is largely a solved problem. There's really already a pretty good dense network of high-cost reference grade sensors that can provide good quality real-time information on air pollution and allow our government partners to respond both with mitigation and with targeted reductions. Unfortunately, these sensors are extremely expensive to deploy. A single reference station can cost anywhere from $10,000 to over $100,000. And creating a sensor network dense enough to cover, say, every village in Laos would cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So in the absence of this, we don't always have the tools we need to accurately assess if our interventions are working, and that's what a lot of the work here is focused on. So here's a quick example that I really like. These are 3 places with roughly similar populations. So on the left, we have the City of London, which has a population of around about 9 million. There's about 400 good, high-quality, open reference grade sensors there. If we turn our attention a bit closer to home for some of the people on this call in Bangkok, we can see in the city of Bangkok, there's about 85 of these open reference sensors. And when we began this project with our colleagues in the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Natural Resources in Laos, there was only one single reference grade sensor covering the entirety of Laos with a population of about 7.5 million. So today we're going to talk about both sensors and AI, but I thought I'd start with a little bit of scene setting. And for the next section, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ole from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. He's going to take you through some of the things that we've been doing in Laos in order to increase our understanding of air quality and also help grow the evidence base for better decisions. Over to you, Ole.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. So good evening, greeting from Laos. So once again, my name is Sitiden Nonasai. So you can call me Ole. It's very easy. So today I will present the Laos status for air quality monitoring and challenges. Next, please. Yeah. So for the implementation of the air quality monitoring in Laos now, so we have fixed station for air quality monitoring station in totally we have 15 station that set up in the 6 station in northern part of the country, 6 in mid of the country, and 3 last for set up in the southern part of the country. For the number 12 to 15, we just finished installation in mid of August 2024. Those stations support by CASA project that called Clean Air Sustainable for ASEAN project. Next, please. Yeah, we also have 2 types of AQMS mobile. First, mobile AQN truck. There are only PM10 and some gas sensor like sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, ozone, and etc. So in the future, we will upgrade. If the budget is enough, we will put the PM2.5 sensor more. Yeah. Next, please. Move back. Yeah. The second type of AQMS mobile we call high volume. They have PM10, PM2.5, and TSP. Yeah. So normally this equipment we use in the emergency case like agriculture fire, landfill fire, or some factory they produce the pollutants. We also use this instrument for collecting the data for baseline data of air quality monitoring in Laos since 2018. Next, please. For the local sensor, now previously before the UNICEF project, we have 2 types of local sensor. First model is IES 200 that set up in the whole country as well. There are 10 sensor. And the second model of local sensor we call PAM Air, that support by Global Environment Center. There are 12 sensor as well. Next, please. For the data, we are daily collecting the data from all station, also the sensor as well, and we are report to the minister and to approve before share to the social media. We are Monday Facebook and the Lao National TV. We also share the data to the Ministry of Health to conduct the social media sharing and with the concentration of PM2.5 and data of the air quality index. For this slide, we are showing, we also report in the website, but sorry, the website now we are under maintenance, so we can log in now. But I will maybe in the nearly future we will resolve the problem. Next, please. Yeah. From the result of the sensor that we saw from the UNICEF, the data we can collect of the air pollution to support health impact analysis. The high frequency of the data monitoring we can support to the SDG or support the related department like Department of Environment and Department of Climate Change. The third PM2.5 diary we also share to Ministry of Health that I mentioned above. And the last in the cooperation with the Ministry of Health, we are also conduct the health information to sharing the mass media to wider the health prevention message to the TV, radio, and newspaper. Next, please. Yeah. Hello, next, please. Yeah, for the challenges, we are here. The people in the local area, they are clearing and changing the forest area for agriculture production, especially rice, cassava, rubber, and other economic crops. And limited of budget to extend AQMS station, maintenance and spare part and calibration. And next, poverty, the economic situation, lack of understanding of the impact of it on environment. And the last, difficult to enforcing law and regulation. This is the challenges in Lao PDR now. So next, please. Yeah. So thank you. I have done my presentation.
Thanks very much, Ole. That was great. Everyone, please feel free to ask questions in the chat or Q&A as well. Ole, as acting director of the Environment Lab, has a wealth of information, including perhaps if we've got some time at the end, some more about the challenges in Laos. So I'm going to hand over now to our colleague Hugo. Hugo is going to take you through the machine learning solution that we've built to estimate air quality, including why we think this is an approach that might scale really well globally, and some of the steps that we went through in order to ensure that this is a real digital public good. So over to you, Hugo.
Thank you, Anthony, and hello, everyone. So I'm Hugo. I'm a data scientist from the Frontier Data Lab at the Bangkok office of UNICEF. Very nice to meet you all. So I'm going to take you through the different steps of our reasoning process in order to estimate air quality for the entire country of Lao PDR, and also see how we can build something scalable and sustainable for more countries in the future. So the main issue that we have is like, how can we predict air quality at scale for the entire country? A naive way to do it could be to install one sensor, either reference grade or low-cost sensor per village. But as there are around 8,500 villages in Laos, if we try to do this, it's going to become very complex, both in terms of financing and also in terms of logistics, because we need to have electricity for each of them, internet as well. So that approach, even though it has some pros, might not work. And if we go a bit more into the next slide, we have identified initially three main alternatives that could be ways to actually achieve the mean we identified. So the first one is to cover Laos with air quality sensors. As I've told you, it doesn't seem very realistic, even though the data would be real-time, accurate, and we could have a complete coverage of the country if we do so. But it's going to be very expensive. Maintenance is going to be also a nightmare, and the logistics will be very tough to manage. And also, if we do that, there will be only data for Laos, but there is no way we can reuse the data that we've gotten here directly to scale it to other countries. So we decided not to go with this one. The second one is using satellite physical models that rely on satellite imagery that are global, usually either real-time or near real-time. But unfortunately, that have lower accuracy because it only relies on both measures from satellites and also physical model to predict the air quality at the ground level. And one of the issues for this method in the region is the cloud cover that happens during the rainy season that will lead to unpredictable data availability. And the last one, and I will deep dive a bit on this one in the next slide as well, is the proprietary models. So some models already exist. You can purchase them. They're like commercially available. They are ready to use, pretty easy to use as well. The coverage is often global, and the frequency is also near real time. So they could look like a good alternative, but the issue is that they're expensive. They're also black box. You don't really know what data has been in. You cannot build on it. You cannot replicate, validate. It's a black box, basically. And the accuracy, especially in Southeast Asia, is usually lower than in the rest of the world. And I will explain a bit more on this if we go to the next slide. So here, as I said, like the commercial models could seem like a good option at the first glance, but the issue is that they are mostly trained on global north countries where we have comparatively way more sensors than in Southeast Asia. So one example that I'm going to use is Deep Plume. So it's a solution that has been developed by Plume Labs, a company focused on air quality solutions. It's providing high resolution real-time air quality mapping. So that's quite close to what we want to have. But the issue is, if you look at the training data, Europe has around 2,500 or 2,700 sensors in it. That's the blue bar on the chart on the right side. So this is like the big blue bar. But if you look at Southeast Asia, it only has 66 monitoring stations. So it's really low compared to Europe or even the United States. And as a result, the error, that's the red line on the same chart, the error is like peaking in Southeast Asia as a result, because we don't have much data to train. So obviously the error is more likely to be high, and that's what we are observing. So commercial models, even though they could seem like a good idea, they don't really fit what we want to do because the error is not going to be something we can accept. And if we go on to the next slide, it's even made worse by the way that they are built. So they are not open source. They are usually built on proprietary data, and we cannot check on those results. So it's a black box, as I explained. They often have a fee that can become quite significant as soon as you start to have a lot of users that want to have access to it in order to take any decisions. That will become a significant cost. And also, it's important to keep in mind that they've been built as global models. So they do not take into account the local specificities. And in our case, for Laos and the neighboring countries, it's the fires that are the most important local specificities. There's a burning season every year in Laos, Thailand, and the other countries in the region where agricultures are burning a lot of their crops. There's also quite a lot of waste fires, and all of them are important drivers for the air quality issue in the region, and they are not taken into account by the commercial models. So that's why we decided not to go with those alternatives and rather build our own solution with a focus on open source principles, making sure that we would use 100% open data available globally, that none of that data would be depending on external dependencies, so there would be no recurring fees. And we also really wanted to emphasize the fact that it's not only open source, but we really want to push it to have a digital public good that anyone can come in and adapt, improve in order to make sure that the product is further adapted to their needs. And also something that we really want to do is make sure people can understand why the model is predicting the figures it's predicting and what are the main drivers behind the estimates, making sure that it's completely open and also open for people to adapt and work on top of it. So if we go a bit more into the technical details of how we've built it, we decided to take a bit of the best of both worlds, of every world. Like I've explained the different alternatives we had in mind, we decided to combine them. We are using sensors, so air quality sensors on the ground to provide ground truth. So we're using low-cost sensors that have been installed in Laos. We're also using reference-grade sensors, which are way more expensive, as Anthony explained, but also provide a much more accurate reading. And we are using satellite imagery, for instance, vegetation indexes, fire hotspots, as I explained, that are really important in the local context. Temperature, wind, other weather variables, as well as population. And combining all of this, we build our model. So I'm going to quickly go through that slide, but not in all the details. I think what's important to keep in mind is like we have two different types of data sets that have been inputted into the model that we've used to train a model, basically. Some of them are static, some of them are real time. So for the real time, we have some data pipelines running every day to collect the past 24 hours data and then fed into the model. For the static, it's just a one-off extraction because those figures are not moving very frequently, so we can consider them static, and they are also inputted into the model and used to predict air quality. So if I just go quickly through the near real-time dataset, which I believe are the most relevant in our case, we have air quality figures coming from OpenAQ and air gradient air quality. Sorry, previous slide. So we have OpenAQ, we have air quality figures coming from two providers, and they are the ground truth that we will be using to actually train the model. So the way we do it is like we have features that are used to find correlations between, for instance, the aerosol optical depth, between the fire proximity, like all of them are predictive features, and we use those predictive features to predict the ground truth that is coming from air quality providers like OpenAQ or air gradient. And the main predictive features that we will be looking into are meteorological factors like the temperature, the humidity, the wind, aerosol optical depth. It's a measure of the density of aerosol in the atmosphere, which is also closely related to PM 2.5, which is what we're trying to predict in that case, and also the fire intensity and proximity. So I'm going to deep dive on a couple of them, trying to keep it high level and not too technical. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat as well. So the first one, which I was talking about, is the ground truth. So it's provided by OpenAQ, which is a non-profit organization that is aggregating hundreds of providers of air quality data. They have around 48,000 sensors across 136 countries, and they provide several types of measures. And in our case, as I said, we will focus on 2.5, PM 2.5, which is the one, the concentration type, the most related to the health issues. So in our case as well, so we have around 730 sensors that have been disposed around Thailand and Laos. The Lao one are pretty recent. Like as my colleague Sohib will explain later, we have installed 150 additional low-cost sensors in Laos, but it has been made quite recently, so we don't have historical values for Laos. So what we did is use the data coming from the sensors mostly in Thailand to create a training data set of the ground truth of air quality that we then used to train the model. The main issues we had was mostly dealing with the huge data set because we had real-time data for those monitors for more than 1 year. So it actually quite easily escalated into a huge data set that we had to manage. And if we move on to the next slide. Yeah, the second dataset that I really wanted to highlight is the fire hotspots. As I explained as well at the beginning, it's one of the main drivers for the air pollution in the country. And it's often not taken into account in the commercial models. So what we have done is use FIRMS, which is the NASA fire tracking solution. and it provides near real-time tracking of fires all across the world, along with their radiative power. So for every fire, we have like latitude, longitude, and as well then an estimate of its power. And the complexity here, as you can see on the right side, was to translate all those dots, all those latitude and longitude into a map that could relate to the proximity to a fire. Because just having a list of points is not something we can directly use in a model. So we needed to do some spatial interpolation in order to move from that list of points to a clear heat map covering the entire region, and that could explain or that could translate the impact and the intensity of the nearby fires. So that was the tricky bit of that data set. And the last one, which was also a tough one, actually, I think the hardest one to manage, was the AOD. So it's aerosol optical depth, coming from Imawari. It's a Japanese geostationary satellite that's monitoring Asia and provides near real-time data for several measures, and specifically for aerosol optical depth. So that measure that we call AOD in the rest of the call is very important because it's measuring the aerosol density in the atmosphere, and PM 2.5 are actually aerosols. So both are quite closely related, and we expect it to be one of the main predictors for air quality. And the challenge for that specific one, if we can move on to the next slide, was to manage the complexity and manage the size of all that data, taking hourly pictures of the AOD with some gaps, as you can see on the left side. So we had like for every day, we had 24 pictures, some of them at gaps, and we wanted to average them to one daily picture. So that daily picture you have in the middle, and you still see we have a gap there. Like for instance, the northeastern side of the region is not covered. And in order to fill in the gaps, we did some also geospatial interpolation using a technique called cridging, in order to move from that picture with gaps to a daily picture with some interpolation to fill in the gaps. So that was the main challenge we had to face. But doing this allowed us to have a picture for the past 24 hours, like a near real-time picture for the past 24 hours of the AOD in the countries. And the last thing I also wanted to emphasize, it's the main challenge was not actually training the model. It's collecting all the data and making sure that we have something consistent and coherent for all the data sets, because we had like different type of formats. We had GeoTIFF, we had GRIP, we had NetCDF, and plenty of other file formats, sometimes with different projections. So it can easily turn into a nightmare for people trying to analyze that data. So what we did is use what's called H3 indexing, and it's taking any of those geospatial features, geospatial analysis, and turn it into hexagons around 1 square kilometer in our case. And that would translate maps into actually just a list, like a CSV or an Excel or whatever table-like figures, where we have the index of the hexagon, and then all the features like the AOD, the fire proximity, and so on and so forth. And it actually really decreases the complexity and then enables us to easily input the data into a model. So that's something, if you're working with geospatial data, it's actually something very useful. Now that we've talked a lot about the pipelines, how did we get the data and everything, let's talk a bit about the model. So I'll try to keep it short as well. What we did is use all that data that was collected and build an XGBoost model. And we looked at the performance on the test dataset. So some of the data we put on the train in a train dataset to train the model, and we kept some of the data hidden from the model, and we only used it at the end to measure the performance of the model. That's how it's usually done for machine learning development. And the performance is actually pretty good. Like when we look at the scatter plot of points that you see here, the x-axis is the truth of the sensor, and the y-axis is the estimate of the model. And what we want here is to have like a scatter or cloud of points that is as close as possible to the diagonal that you also see here. So here it's the case, like it's pretty, like the scatter plot looks like a straight line, and it's quite dense and it's not too scattered. So that's a good thing. And the R square for statisticians is of 81%. So it's also very good on the test data set. So we are happy with this. It's like a first good result. And if we look at the next slide, talking about the main features, the top three features are the AOD, so aerosol optical depth, which, as we expected it to be, it's very related to PM2.5. So the more aerosol optical depth you have, the higher the AOD, the also higher is going to be the pollution. Humidity is also a very important one. And the higher the humidity, the lower the air pollution, because humidity is kind of trapping the pollution, is actually removing aerosol from the atmosphere. And the fire hotspot also is like the third most important feature, as we were also expecting. And it's also comforting us in our opinion that it was a good idea to add it, especially because it's usually not in the commercial alternatives. So all these three top predictive features are something that makes sense and also comfort us in our approach. And on the last slide, what I wanted to emphasize as well is what we're looking at in terms of decision making is not to predict the concentration of PM2.5 up to the unit. Like if it's 100 or 102, it doesn't really make a big difference for the decision making. What's really important is to make sure that the prediction falls in the correct buckets. So on the left side, you have a table explaining the main buckets of air pollution and the health recommendation coming from WHO. And you see that, for instance, the good is whenever you are between 0 and 12 for the PM2.5 concentration. So if we look at our performance with the model that I've described, how good are we predicting to fit in the correct bucket? So on the right side, if we only look at the blue bars, you see that the 78% on the left side is the percentage of the accuracy of our predictor. Like how often does the predictor predict the correct bucket? Like for instance, predicting moderate whenever it's actually moderate. So we are around 80%, so that's also like a solid performance. And we wanted to check when are we predicting the correct bucket or the neighbor. In that case, it's 94% when we include both reference grade sensors and local sensors. And the last message that we have to take away from that slide is when we look at the difference between the black and the blue bars in the chart. The black bars are only when we use reference grade sensors, so no low cost, only the expensive reference grade sensor. And the blue one is when we do the sensor fusion, taking both reference grade and low costs. So what we see is the main difference is regarding the prediction of the correct bucket. We go from 58% when we only take in the reference grade to 78% when we have both reference and local sensors. And that really highlights the importance of having the local sensors as a complement to the reference and expensive sensors when we try to predict air quality. So also like a very good indicator that the approach is correct. So thanks a lot. I know it's been quite technical. I'll be very happy to take any questions later on in the Q&A. And I will hand over to Sohib, our colleague in the Lao PDR.
Thank you, Hugo. I'm back again. Am I readable?
Go for it, mate. You sound great.
Okay, cool. So thank you, Hugo. And so the next slide, please, Anthony. So again, we're asking ourselves, why are we doing this, right? Just to give you a perspective about Laos. Laos is a relatively small landlocked country, compared to their larger and more populous neighboring nations. We have China with 1.5 billion people, Vietnam 100 million people, Cambodia 70 million people, Thailand 71 million people, and Myanmar 55 million people. And the total population of Laos, only 7.5. Applying a simple math, there's around 1.7 billion people around the 7.5. Every year, the outdoor air pollution causes around 10,000 premature deaths in Laos PDR itself. During the burning season, which is end of Feb towards beginning of May, the level of pollution, the PM 2.5, is 4 times higher than the World Health Organization recommended guidelines. So for all that reason, this is the reason why we took the initiative to pilot this project in Lao PDR. Next slide, please. For us, it's all about data, and we do believe that we cannot do data science without data, and this is the main reason why we partnered with our local government counterpart, the Ministry of Education and Sport. They do have a legit management information system where they have all the schools in the country logged into the system, their locations, number of students, the infrastructure status. So once we decided that to go for the air quality monitoring installations, we decided to go for schools because that kind of like for UNICEF, our comfort zone, because UNICEF in Lao BDR, it's a sector lead for the education, which would be easy for us that to integrate the air quality monitors within the school systems. The data, so when we got the data from our partner, the Ministry of Education and Sport, they're using LESMES, which is Lao Ministry of Education and Sport Management Information System. Basically, that is a GIS-enabled data aggregation platform for data management and monitoring. In that system, we have over 1,800 secondary schools. Are we going to implement air quality monitors in all the schools? We would love to, but because of the limited resources we have, so we kind of decided how we can prioritize the schools and how we can select the schools in every district or every location in Laos. We provide that data and we partnered with our data scientist team at the regional office. So we set a priority for us to go for the school selections. Basically, the main criteria for us that we set before we start the rollout plan is the school location. So Laos itself has 18 provinces, and there is also 148 districts. So in reality, if we can put one sensor per district, that means realistically speaking that we are covering the whole country. Then the question that we ask, how are we going to select the school? So the criteria that we put is a school has accessibility to school itself, and the number of students, like if you see in the screen, the larger bubble, the bigger bubble, that means it has a larger number of students. That's one of the criteria. The school should be connected to the national grid for the electricity, and the school should not have internet connectivity, because also our aim, besides installing air quality monitors, we are bringing connectivity to the selected schools. So the internet to provide connectivity to air quality monitors, but also for the teachers and the student to benefit from the services that will come along with the air quality monitors. Next. Based on that data that we managed to get from the management information system from Ministry of Education, we did our mapping exercise. So in the map that you see, this is the 148 schools that met our criteria. So now we need to do like a quality assurance to make sure the school are meeting the criteria that we set beforehand. So, and then we partnered we reach out to all the mobile network operators or the ISP, the internet service provider in Laos, to work with them to provide connectivity for the selected schools. Out of the 4 or 5 companies that we reached out, only one company that came back to us and provided and showed interest to work with UNICEF. Imagine that if you want to do an assessment for every single school that we selected, that would require a lot of resources, which we don't have. So we provide the mapping exercise to Lao Telecom, which is the company that been awarded for the school connectivity, and they did check the schools, the 148 school. Literally, they checked every single school that we highlighted. What you are seeing in the screen, it's one province that been checked and surveyed by Lao Telecom. They made sure that they did their own assessment if the school far from the base station where the fiber optics node end. So they come with an estimation how much going to cost us to connect that schools. So as part of the social responsibility, because also they saw the value in the air quality monitors, they agreed to do any additional civil work for free. Not only that, they tripled the internet speed that we asked for. So the whole idea for us, because UNICEF, we work with children, we work with students, and UNICEF also, we want to capitalize on the fact that UNICEF is a sector lead when it comes to education, and this is why we selected secondary schools. The idea is to equip the student with the knowledge, with the air quality monitors for them to have a better understanding why the air quality is bad. We're hoping that once they get information about from the air quality, then they will be able to communicate this to their caregivers, to their parents, and we were hoping for the community where they live in. So along with the air quality monitors, the ISP also offered to install the air quality monitors in every school that we selected. That also relieved us from the installation fees. Every school equipped with high-speed internet and a QR code. So if you see on the photo on the right-hand side, that I think is school principal. She was scanning a QR code that associated with the air quality monitors that being installed in this school. So from that QR code, she will get like a real-time data about the air quality status within the school area and perhaps in the village as well. So when we started this project, that's the photo on the left-hand side. If you can zoom in, there is a small dot, which is the sensors that we use at the very beginning for testing. So that before the rollout. That was started in January 2025. Towards the end of April, we managed to get all the schools up and running. So you are seeing on the right-hand side 148 air quality monitors being installed in all the schools. While we're doing our research, selecting schools, selecting vendors, connectivity, and etc. Also, we were looking for a vendor who would be able to understand UNICEF values and UNICEF core business. We do believe in open source applications through our research being done by our colleagues at the regional office. We were aiming to have an open source hardware and open source data and open data. And also we've been looking for a partner who believe in the digital public philosophy, plus cost and high accuracy. Out of all the vendors that we searched and we checked, there's only one stand out of that, not because they're here, but also they proved to be a good partner and a legit partner. With that being said, I'm inviting Akim, the CEO and founder of Air Gradient, our business partner for Air Gradient. Akim, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sohaib, for the introduction. So I want to briefly give an overview about Air Gradient, why we actually believe so much in open hardware, open source, open data. And I think it really gets back to our origin. So in 2019, I was on a sabbatical. And then I took that picture here from the terrace of my house. And in northern Thailand, in Chiang Mai, where we are based, they have not 4 seasons, they have 5 seasons. And the 5th season is called burning season. So you can pretty much imagine what it means. So we were surrounded by wildfires. I was volunteering at my children's school. And it was 2019 was really, really a bad year, and the head of school didn't know exactly do the air purifiers work well enough? Is the school safe? So I started to build simple air quality monitors just as a volunteer project, actually together with students, with teachers, with parents, and then also building like actually air purifying equipment just to create a safe space basically for the children. And then we started to also like do workshops with neighboring Thai local high schools, you know, like looking at the underlying reasons, why are these fires happening, what can we actually do against it, also teaching children about the health impacts, bringing them into the forest with firefighters. I mean, not when it was burning, but after the seasons, so that the children can really understand like the whole scope of that problem. And then more and more people ask us like, can we build these monitors? More and more schools contacted us, and then we actually formed the company a couple of months after we started to basically support that mission. And today, 6 years later, we have been very successful in getting the air quality monitors up and running as a global company. So we have now customers in more than 80 countries, and last year we sold more than 15,000 monitors. And we also do a lot of research, which I will cover in a second. So maybe let's just have a quick look on our air quality monitor. So we do indoor air quality monitor, and that's actually how we started at the school, because obviously at that time it was really important to have safe classrooms and to know if the purifier is working. But we also do outdoor air quality monitoring. And on the outdoor side, we have actually two models. The smaller one on the right-hand side is the one that we deployed in Laos. And then we are just launching a bigger unit with solar cells and some additional gases that it measures. And primarily, the monitor is focusing on PM 2.5, which is probably the most pressing issue, especially in the region here. And I would like to highlight two things that I think really distinguishes us from a lot of the other providers out there. And one thing is that we really see that affordability is a key issue. So we need to make sure that there's access to affordable air quality monitors. And the way we designed the monitors was to, of course, make sure they're accurate, and I will cover that in a second, but also to make sure that we can offer them at a very, very affordable price. And here you can see that we are around 30%, at least 30% cheaper than like comparable products. What's also important is actually the ongoing costs. So often you have to, for example, subscribe to a data platform, and you cannot use alternative platforms. So often this adds quite a lot of costs on top. We also wanted to make sure that the units are very easy to repair, actually by the customers themselves, so that the lifetime of the monitors can be really extended to a very long time. The other really important aspect for us, and I think here it's something that we are very, very unique, is that all our air quality monitors, all 3 monitors that you saw before, are open source hardware. And that means that like all the schematics, all the details, all the firmware code is actually publicly available. And everybody can actually use that design, actually maybe even produce these monitors themselves and sell them. And why we are doing this is that we said we really want to maximize the impact and also make that design that we tested thoroughly, and you will see that in a second, available in countries that potentially we cannot really reach, because maybe it's countries that are difficult to export monitors to, and so on. So I want to dive a little bit into the science part, because I think there was also a question in the chat before, like how we actually calibrate these monitors. So let's start in Laos. So we we co-located the monitors that you see on the top right here with a reference station in Vientiane. And what you see on the left-hand side is the gray line is basically the raw data coming out of these low-cost monitors. And the red line is the reference monitor. And you see, yes, the gray to the red line, the gray line is like in general higher than the red line. So that means that in that case, they overestimated the pollution. And then we ran a calibration and basically brought it to the blue line. And you can see that the blue line is actually very, very close to the red line. And what we actually comparing here is a monitor that costs you less than $200 on the low cost side to a reference station that probably costs you around at least 20,000 US dollars. So you can see that you can actually get the accuracy very close to the reference station, but you have to make sure that you really calibrate them. So out of the box, let's say the level of the error can be quite higher. And you see a nice scatter plot on the right-hand side with a pretty good R-square of 0.93 here. And we not only do this in Laos, we also do that globally, because we think it's really important, especially as a low-cost monitor manufacturer, to really build this trust and also to really understand the performance of the monitors in very, very different environmental conditions. So you can see here we have, for example, a very cold climate in Canada to very hot areas, for example, in Africa. And what we do here is we co-locate the monitors with reference stations. You can see some pictures in the next slide where we have very, very different environments, and we are collecting data there. And then we can really understand and also calibrate the monitors to various environmental conditions. So in the end, I want to say a big thank you to the UNICEF team, to the government of Laos. This is a picture actually from a workshop we hosted in Chiang Mai a couple of months ago, and it was really great to see the whole team together and also discuss like how we run that project. Thank you, and over to Anthony.
Anthony, you are muted.
Yes.
Anthony, you're muted if you can hear me.
Sorry, guys. All right, let's try that again. So you've heard a little bit from Hugo now about how we can use artificial intelligence to estimate air quality even in areas where we don't have sensors. You've heard a bit from both Ole and Sahib around how we can densify the sensor network. But because we're UNICEF, we wanted to bring this back to children. So I'd like to invite both Sahib and our colleague from the Ministry of Education and Sport, Bhuvan, to give us a short overview of how this project is both for and with children. And I'll hand over to you, Sahib.
Thank you, Anthony and Asim. Good evening and good morning. Okay, my name is Bhuvan. May I talk about the law of students? We have to concern about the air pollution. For in our ministry, we try to protect the student. How we can suggest them to understand about the effect from the air pollution. For the air sensor really help us for the one way and for the UNICEF support for the first time for us for the air sensor in the education sector. Next slide, please. The better data enable the better policy we build the decision. You can see the case neighboring country in Thailand. They called the school during the air pollution have the high. They assign the students have to learn in their house. But for the decision have very important for this case because for you will code the school, you have to concern how the student will lot the benefit for the learning, how they can continue to the study, and they can complete the curriculum the whole year. There's second point for the make the decision for in this case the air pollution. We should concern about the cooperation between about the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education and any sector. For in the Lao country, we have to concern for the local sector to concern about that. On the third, for the data to make sure to reliable for the announce the student and the teacher, very important. Have to concern. We have to have the tool, the evidence. For example, the Monley they mentioned already. They have the station, and for we got the support from the UNICEF all about the air sensor. The one way to help us to support us to decision about to prepare the plan or the decision for the taking the then will code they will and continue or study in the home. In the first for in our case, just the last month, we according from the announcement from the Ministry of the Natural Resource Development for the letters sent to our ministry. We announce to the education provincial level to concern about the air pollution. If that the area they have high the air pollution, please concern about and close the school and suggest the principal of the school to assign the teacher to give the assignment for the student continue to study in their house and try to support them how they can, when they go back, they can continue to learn and complete to study. Yeah, we really concerned a lot for our vision and in the future. Yeah.
Sorry, Vivon,
Yeah.
that's for me. I skipped ahead early.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vivon. I think
Yes.
that's the best context we're going to get for today around how these data projects that we often think of as a little bit disconnected from the decision making can really impact the lives of kids. So for the very last section, I'm going to talk a little bit about, so you've heard a really specific use case from Laos, and I wanted to talk a little bit about our vision for scale and why we think that this is a good first attempt and a good model for how we can scale this globally. So we chose Laos for a number of reasons, but one of the most pressing ones was we wanted to demonstrate to ourselves that we could take what's called a transfer learning approach, where we were able to use the relatively dense sensor grid in Thailand in order to train our model to make accurate predictions for Laos. And we had the best validation set because the sensors that we were deploying weren't available during model training, but once we had a trained model, we could later compare them. So as a validation of the idea that transfer learning works, I think this project is a remarkable success. We think that this is, while it was designed for East Asia and Pacific, and you heard Hugo talk a little bit about how some of the data sets we've selected were particularly relevant for this context, particularly fire hotspots, we think that the global scale version of this will probably involve what we call a mixture of experts approach, whereby we can leverage the dense sensor networks from neighboring countries in order to predict for nearby countries without perhaps falling into the trap that some of our commercial partners have of taking the whole world and trying to predict for the whole world. The second thing we've done that will enable scale for this project is the data sets that we've selected, the ones that Hugo has walked you through, are all 100% global, 100% open. So every one of the data sets we've talked about, with the exception of AOD, which I'll talk about at the end, is available for nearly every country in the world in real time or near real time for free with permissive open licenses. And what that enables is data sovereignty, which I'll come back to. Another design decision about this approach that I really like is you guys have probably been using AI, things like ChatGPT that run in giant data centers on the cloud. This approach has been designed for regions with low computational resources. And so just to give you an example, our model now, the daily prediction loop takes less than 30 minutes, including the data ingestion. And it requires really, because of the geo-indexing that Hugo talked about earlier, only a few hundred megabytes of data and only a few minutes or maybe an hour of CPU time. So by removing the need for that giant cloud infrastructure, we've made this something that our partners in places like Ministry of Natural Resources, both in Laos and around the world, are able to run and inspect themselves. And last of all, we're big proponents of open source. So all of the code, all of the data for both the data engineering, the pipelines, the modeling, and the results will shortly be available on a GitHub repo. At the end of this talk, we're going to post a quick link or form for you guys to fill out if you want to get notified when the open source repo goes live, which should be in the next few weeks. And that open source brings other advantages. It means that scientific, academic, government, and even commercial colleagues can not only validate our work, but leverage it for their own air quality estimation. So we hope to increase the global commons of air quality AI while we do the project. So yeah, I guess those are my scale points. 100% open data, designed for low resource environment. And as far as we're aware, it's the first AI model that ministries and other partners could host themselves, which ensures that they aren't outsourcing their AI or their data sovereignty to, potentially private or even overseas interests, which in many cases may be a blocker. So we're nearly at the end. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. I wanted to do a short round of thank yous. This has been a project that's involved a number of people, some of whom are on this call, others of whom couldn't make it. It would be a 4-hour-long Oscar speech to thank everyone, but I'd like to highlight a couple. First of all, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to UNICEF's Office of Innovation, who provided the funding in order to start this project, as well as valuable advice throughout. I'd also like to thank our colleagues at ARM, the chip maker, who provided a lot of the financial support that has made this kind of AI work, especially experimental AI work in the UNICEF context, which isn't always easy to get traditional donors to fund possible. Obviously, an enormous thank you to our colleagues from the Ministry of Natural Environment and Resources and the Ministry of Education and Sport. You've met two of them today, but there are more behind the scenes who made this possible. You heard a little bit about the challenges of getting sensors deployed, especially in places where there isn't always internet connectivity. And thank you so much to our colleagues at Lao Telecom, who have taken that really forward as a corporate social responsibility project at a fraction of the cost of what we expected a commercial provider to charge us for that kind of work. And lastly, thank you very much to Akeem from Air Gradient. It's not always that you find somebody is committed to the open source, open data, digital public goods values that we think are right for the world. And yeah, we've enjoyed working with you guys a lot. Also, a quick thank you. I think some of our colleagues from UNICEF UK are here too, who've been key facilitators in getting this project going. So thank you very much, everyone. We've got to the end, more or less on time. Looking forward to your questions. So here today, we've got some data scientists, we've got some air quality experts, we've got some education experts, and we've got a number of international development experts. So please don't feel like you have to limit your questions to any one area. And I look forward, hopefully, to answering some of them. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. If you would like to post your question in the Q&A, and then we'll go through them. And if possible, we'll also take some on voice at the end, but aware we're getting a little bit close for time. Okay, so I'm not actually sure who's moderating this Q&A. Jude, would you like to moderate the Q&A?
Hello, folks. Happy to moderate the Q&A over here. I've got a couple of questions. I've tried to respond to them in the chat and the Q&A. I note Thomas Heidelberg will give you someone will drop in the presenter's information into the chat specifically. So in terms of the Q&A, we have a couple of questions for Achim. Where do you have your reference station in Africa?
Yeah, so we have one with AfriSat, that's in Accra in Ghana. AfriSat is an organization that actually do a lot of low-cost sensor testing, and they have a nice website. They can actually see a lot of monitors and how they actually, like a lot of low-cost monitors and how they perform in various environmental conditions. I think they have a dry and a more wet season there. And we also have a co-location in South Africa as well, near Johannesburg.
Thanks, Achim. That's great. We've got a couple of other questions for you. We're given time frame, we're not be able to get to all of them. You've got with the calibration, do you do a separate characterization for fire source PM versus other typical sources of PM? Can you tell us a bit more about that, Achim? That's a question for you.
Yeah, I think over the last 6 months, we had many discussions about what aerosol we should use for testing, because you have traffic smoke, you have industrial smoke, you have wildfire smoke, and so on. And it's really a science by itself. So at the moment, we use something quite similar to, I would say, wildfire smoke in our test chamber. But we also have to really understand that, like, the aerosols have a big impact on the calibration as well. There are a couple of blog posts we wrote about it. Maybe I can share that, and we can send it around as well.
We've probably got time for one more question and 4 more minutes. Here is one also for you, Achim. There's some questions other colleagues have provided. Is solar-powered outdoor air sensor already commercially available? What about the cost? Does it use GSM? Over to you.
Yeah, so that's just in time. So actually next week we have an event where we're gonna launch this unit officially. It's gonna come in 2 versions. One is with solar cell with basically cellular, which is LTE Cat 1, which is similar to what your smartphone uses. So if your smartphone has reception, then the monitor will work. And the unit with PM, CO2, VOCs, temperature, humidity will be around $400, including the solar panel, including the data plan. And then we have a more professional unit with ozone and NO2, which will be below $1,000. And both units will be open source hardware, exactly the same principle we have with the unit that has been deployed in Laos.
Thanks for your answers there, Achim. I think there's one last question. I think, Sohaib, you have actually answered it, which is, what are the requirements for schools fulfilled before selecting? So what are the requirements, again, for schools before you're selecting them for the sensors? Sohaib, do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. So basically, the monitors that we procured, there's 2 versions. There's one comes with a built-in SIM card, which needs data roaming services. So basically, you need a connectivity around the school or around the location that you anticipate to put the air quality monitors. And the other option comes with a Wi-Fi. So you need electricity and data. That's basically what you need. Very easy. Over.
Amazing, Sohaib. Look, we've got 1 minute left. So I'm going to quickly pass to Anthony and say thank you to everybody who attended this call. Anthony, over to you.
Thanks, Jude. Can I use my 1 minute to answer one of the Q&A questions? So a couple of questions in the Q&A around accuracy or calibration and around how can we deploy more sensors. I wanted to revisit the topic of like AI versus reference sensors or even AI versus low-cost sensors. And we think we've made a pretty compelling argument that you might need many fewer sensors than you think in order to train an AI model that can then make predictions, not just for those locations, but for every location in the region. So my first suggestion would be try the model that we're releasing, maybe have a look at commercial models, but I think you should try the model we're releasing, and then plan the sensor deployment around how you can use that in order to leverage that sensor data to improve an AI model that you can iterate on and train by yourselves. And the last one around how did you validate or calibrate, I guess, your AI model, but while I also asked about satellite data. So the way in which we assessed if our AI model was going to work was we removed a number of regions from the past training set, and also we had Laos as, I guess, what you would call a holdout set. So then the model that was trained on Thailand, we asked it to predict the air quality for Laos for a particular day in the future, where we now had these air gradient sensors to compare the results against. And when we do that, we find that despite there being, of course, always in, what do they say, all data is wrong, but some is useful, despite there being noise and like a level of a loss of precision in the satellite data processing, the machine learning model that we produced
I think we're just
generally
going a little bit
predicts
past, Anthony.
within
I'm really sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry.
I'm really sorry.
The satellite model
I
that we
think the
produced
last thing is say
generally
goodbye to folk.
is within plus or minus 10% of the true value from the sensors. All right, so I'm getting the wrap up now. Thank you all so much for your attention. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure that we would be more than happy to answer any other questions. We're going to post our details in this chat and in a follow-up email that those of you who registered on Teams should get. But otherwise, I'm going to type mine in the chat. Oh, Jude already has right now, amockler@unicef.org. Please feel free to ask us any further questions and let us know if you'd be interested in getting notified when we release the open source project. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.